position on it. Ms. Newman is here. I don't know if the applicant, he is here. If there are any questions of the applicant, now would be the time to ask, and I think we've got somebody opposed that we will hear from also.
We have Councilor Woodson with a question.
Can you clarify for me what you just said, that the board took no position? Is that what you said?
My understanding
Why?
that, it's my understanding the clerk referred it to the Board of Honor, and they did not take a vote in favor or against the name change. They had no official position.
So I guess it's because
Right.
it's not being named after someone or in honor of someone, it's just simply a name change?
No, it is named after someone.
Oh, it is? Yeah, okay, well, maybe
It's named after
if somebody
someone.
knows the grounds upon which they took no position.
At the first reading, we wasn't aware that our neighbors on the street actually opposed the name change, and that was brought before the Board of Honor, and they recommended to come back for, this is the first reading, so they could have their chance to address the council. So they are here tonight, and but
All right.
Okay. Ms. Washington, did you receive anything else from the Board of Honor?
So what we're saying is the Board of Honor didn't take no actions because there were individuals opposed to it. And then it was sent to us for us now to make a decision whether we change it or not? Is that what you're saying?
I don't
that's what the
have their
gentleman
minutes,
said.
but I believe
I want to
it.
make sure I understand, because I was the one questioning it because of, I wanted us to be consistent with all the other name change that we did.
it's
And
my
that's
understanding that after this first reading, when the public comment comes in from our neighbors, that I assume that you will send it back to the Board of Honor for their full consideration.
No, I don't know that would be the process. Let's do this to try to get a handle on it, to move around, because all y'all are here and council's clearly engaged and wishing to hear a little something. First of all, I have a sidebar question about what district is this? So the councilor whose district this is. So it's mine. Okay, this is Councilor Baker. All right, just wanted to make sure we had, that it wasn't Councilor Pugh, for instance. All right, it looks like we have everyone here to go ahead and get started. We've got Councilor Thomas.
Mayor, I just wanted to say to Councilor Woodson, what we were told at the last meeting, the reason that the Honor Board sent it back was they said they only deal with honorary naming, and this is not an honorary naming. This is an actual change in the name. The fact that there were people at the Honor Board that objected to it I don't think was discussed with us at the last council meeting. So that's why the Honor Board said no, it needs to go back to council, and council deal with it, and whatever we decide in the first and second reading, it's our decision. Honor Board says not us.
That makes more sense. Let's see, Councilor Woodson.
I just want clarification, because I thought when we tried to do the same thing, to do the name change for Reverend Flakes, and I think he tried for Mr. Davis, and it was a street change name request. We sent it to the board, if I remember correctly, and they came back and said no, that something. I know we wanted to do a name change.
It was honorary, yep.
Right, but we wanted the one, I know the one for Flakes was supposed to be a name change, and the discussion came back originally that we could not do that. So then in order to recognize him, then we went ahead and sent it to the honorary board for that reason. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. What's the difference between this one and that one?
All right, let's see. We've got Councilor Allen.
I guess the distinction in my mind is we're naming this Chastain Drive. It's not Joseph Chastain Drive, it's Chastain Drive. And the comparison you mentioned was naming it in honor of somebody else. in using their whole name, and this is just a change. It's just one simple term. It's not in honor of Dr. Chastain. It's just Chastain Drive.
Right.
Well, then I think then that distinction should have been done at the time the request came forward. Then someone should have said, we can change it if we didn't use his whole name. We just used Flake or something like that. I have no objection. I just want to make sure that we're consistent with every request that comes. I don't want to vote on something that we weren't fair to someone else, and then I get the phone calls and I get stopped saying, well, y'all always say you're open record, y'all consistent, but you were not consistent. That's why I'm asking the questions, because I want to be very, very clear so that when I make my vote and I have to speak to my constituents, I can answer very comfortably. And right now, I don't feel comfortably because I feel the process is being done two different ways. No disrespect. I love the man. He's great. He did a lot of great things. But I like us to stay consistent with what we're doing. And that's my reason for asking these questions, because to me, sitting here listening, just so you could see my version of it, I'm looking at, we try to do this for another individual. I'm just going to use individuals. For another individuals, and we were told, no, you cannot do that. Okay? So the only way we could have did something to honor that person this way. Even though you're not using his whole name, you're actually honoring him too. So
Yeah, and
that's the part where, where I'm facing a little struggles, because the whole reason you want to change the name is to honor a great person. Okay? And the same way that we wanted to honor another great person. But we were told we couldn't do it. Now I'm hearing that we could have done it if we would have took out part of the person's name. And that's where I'm struggling a little bit, because if that was the case, then we should have did that for the other person too.
All right, I think that's a very good inquiry, and one perhaps we should continue to look into. Since you're here, sir, tell us, what is the purpose of this? Is it to honor a person, or what is your purpose? And then let's have a hearing.
I made
and
a
go
little
on.
presentation
Yeah.
board with.
Give them your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Joel Lewis. I work for Chastain Properties. I was hired by Dr. Chastain in 2011, and we're at 5770 Milgen Road, suite number 9. It's in the Milgen Square Shopping Center. I don't know how well you can see this, but this is Gunboat Drive. It goes in between Milgen Road and Old Town Drive. Our shopping center that I work out of is right on the corner of Milgen Road and Gunboat Drive. We're asking for a renaming of the street, not an honorary. So that's where I think it's a little unusual and maybe a little different from what has been asked recently. But we're trying to rebrand the shopping center. Okay. We're trying to rebrand the shopping center that has 34 spaces in it. It's about 8 years old. It was formerly called Gunboat Plaza. We've renamed it the Chastain Plaza. We're trying to increase the visibility and brand our company in the area. But that's where it's a little different, I think, from what I've learned from some of the recent name changes. So there's 3 parcels on the street. One of them is our shopping center. There's 3 parcels that have an address. Our shopping center with 34 spaces, rental spaces in it. It's Chastain Plaza now. There's a vacant lot across the street. I believe it's the one highlighted. Well, that's actually the Gunboat Plaza. Across the road, the larger parcel, if you'll move that up, it's highlighted in red on the. If you could rotate that. That's the larger parcel of undeveloped land. It's vacant lot right now that's zoned commercial. The the best use for it will be multifamily. We're trying to rebrand this area. We're trying to get away from Gunboat Drive. I think that a lot of you probably know who Dr. Chastain was. And if not, I'd like to send you more information about him. Like I said, there's 3 parcels. The third one is owned by Mr. and Miss Thomas. They're here, and there's a duplex on it, and they're the ones that, you know, we came back, and we're having this first reading mainly so they could address you guys and tell you their concerns. But I've talked with them, and what I understand of their concerns is legitimate. They have a mother who's lived there, or the family's owned the house for 40 years. They're worried about changing address, which is a legitimate concern, changing checks, letting their family members know that of their new address. And I want the city council to know that I can relate to that, because a while back when the city changed some addresses to make the continuity right on the streets, my house address was changed. And so I know exactly what they'll have to go through to change, you know, the name of their street. And I can say that process was less than I thought. The post office actually notified most of the people who sent me mail. But that's, from what I understand, is their only concern. And tonight I just wanted to make sure everybody knows what we're trying to do with the area and what the street is. We're asking for a complete name change. And I think that pretty much sums up. Oh, and I want to thank the engineering department, and from a property manager, they're pretty helpful for me. And I wanted to say, too, this Fort Benning, the job cuts, I mean, from a property manager's point of view, that's you know, that's really at the top of your list. This is kind of a localized issue, but for the whole city, that's a big deal. So.
It sure is. Well, thank you very much. It doesn't look like there's any questions for you at this time. Ms. Newman, did you have anything you wanted to add before we call up those that are objecting to the request for the name change?
No, that's correct. I just wanted to make sure that it was noted that we received the concerns from the Thomases after the initial meeting on the 23rd. There was a mix-up in the dates that was put on the actual survey and the actual letter sent out. And we agreed that it needed to come back on first reading to give them the opportunity to express their concerns. And I think Mr. Lewis expressed it the same way that we received it. And in our conversations with Ms. Thomas, the concern was the mother that lives there and her having to go through changing all of her addresses and legal documents and that sort of thing. And I think the discussion, that my understanding as far as where it went to the Board of Honor, is they felt uncomfortable with it because it was actually a name change of a public street, and they're accustomed to dealing with the honorary names, and that was the confusion as part of that.
And that's consistent with your ordinance that you changed a few years ago? The proposals to rename an existing street or any segment thereof in honor or memory of any person living or dead shall be referred to the Board of Honor. That's what they're used to dealing with. And, of course, in this particular case, they weren't comfortable with it and took no official position. So this does not have to go back to the Board of Honor. If we want to have this discussion, then you can vote at your next regular meeting. But we do want to hear from the other people here.
Sure. All right. Well, it's certainly, I see the issue, no doubt. So let's see. Yes, if you come forward and state your name for the record and let council hear your concerns.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, councilors. My name is Mike Thomas. I'm the owner of the duplex at 5500 Gumbo Drive. Let me clarify a couple things for you. When we went to the Board of Honors meeting, the reason why they asked for it to be brought back was the letter that we received from the city engineering department. It was received by us on May the 3rd. There are two papers inside here. And Mr. Baker, you got a copy of all this, and I think you said you were going to give copies to all the other counselors. If you'd like copies of it, I have them for each one of y'all if you'd like to see them. But the first one said that we needed to respond by the 5th of June. But then you look at the next page, and this is a page where you write your comments down or any of the issues that you have. It says you please respond by July 5th, and that's what confused us. When we received it on the 3rd, obviously we would have thought you'd had a little bit more time than 2 days to respond to it. So that's why we did not respond to it by the 5th. We were never notified of the first reading. So when the Board of Honors, when we told them that and showed them this information, then that's when they recommended it to be brought back for another first reading. The main issue I have is twofold. I have an 88-year-old mother. She's lived there for over 20 years. She doesn't have the internet. She doesn't have a smartphone. She communicates with her family and her friends, and they're primarily up in Michigan and Wisconsin, just cards and letters. And it's going to be real difficult for her to make sure that all the people that she knows, she gets a lot of mail. That they'll know her, if there is a name change or anything like that. I understand that the post office, does that, but they do it just for a specific amount of time. My concern is, what's going to happen when they start, saying, well, there's no such address, and then the mail starts going back to the people that she sent mail to, or cards to, or letters to. And for an older person, because most of those folks are in their 70s and 80s themselves, they could probably think she's either passed away or moved to a nursing home or something like that. That's my biggest. My mother's 88 years old. I don't. She doesn't need any kind of stress or anything like that to have to deal with. My second issue is the Chastains at the June 23rd council meeting stated that they wanted to, quote, rebrand their shopping center because of the crime in that neighborhood. Well, my mother's been there for 20 years. I've owned it for 8 years because I bought it from her. There's never been any crime at my property. All the crime that's been over there has been in that one little shopping center. There have been 2 murders there. And, I understand they're wanting to rebrand it, but it's putting a hardship on other folks because, they're trying to clean up their image. And I just don't think that she should have to deal with something like that. My mother asked my sister if she would come and speak in her behalf. So this is my sister. So, if she could, she'd like to speak too.
Well, we certainly appreciate you being here, and I know Council obviously is going to very thoughtfully take this under consideration. I think Councilor Woodson's raised some interesting issues, and so we'll, I guess, hear it next week. Is that right?
It'll
If
be
it's
the
not,
second Tuesday in August.
okay, I'm sorry, the second Tuesday in August, our next business meeting, I should say more clearly. And in the interim, if there's something else, or if a counselor asks for it to be postponed, then we'll certainly have our staff let you know. So we appreciate it. Thank you for your input. And let's see, we've got
Did she want to say?
Counselor Baker.
Yeah, I just have a quick procedurally. I just want to make sure that.
Hold on, we need you to. Can you flip on Counselor Baker's? For some reason, it's stuck again. If you'll just turn on his mic. It's a little slow tonight.
Thank you. I think we got it. Because I know at one point one of the reasons for the delay is because of the mix-up in the mail-outs. So procedurally, I just want to make sure, as far as the process goes, you did get an opportunity to respond and talk and communicate, and that's one of the reasons we backed up to another first reading.
Certainly.
I mean, is there anything you feel
No,
like
no.
I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable with the process.
Oh, yes.
Regardless of how things go, I want you to feel
Oh, yeah.
comfortable. You've been included in the process. And I apologize for the mix-up in the dates. I don't know how that happened, but it did. But and then certainly we want to hear from your sister.
Okay.
We certainly want to hear from her too. And we certainly don't want to inconvenience, and these are all difficult decisions. We don't want to inconvenience anybody, and I certainly understand that. And I understand the Chastains from the business standpoint. You know, they're heavily invested in that area. They do a good job with their properties, and they're trying to make a decision to protect their interest and move their business forward in the community. So it's a difficult decision, and I just want you to know we do understand. But I want to make sure you're comfortable with the process that we've.
And likewise, I hope you do too.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming. We appreciate you all being here to express your
Come on.
interest in our community. And Mr. City Attorney?
I'm going to let her
Oh,
speak.
I'm sorry. Come on up.
Give them
I apologize.
your name for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Cindy Tharp. My mother is Joanna Thomas, and she does live at 5500 Gunboat Drive. As my brother has said, she's 88 years old, has lived there more than 20 years. I'm here tonight to oppose the renaming of Gunboat Drive on a number of standpoints. First, I'd like to point out that it is a tremendous inconvenience. On any routine month, she will get more than 100 pieces of mail. She did property management herself through the years. She worked civil service. She was active in the community. So she gets a variety of mail, professional, business, and personal. When Chastain Properties spoke about how easy it is to change your address with the post office, yes, it is an easy process. However, as recently as this past year, my mother requested some mail be moved from a weekend home that she had in Eufaula, Alabama, to her home here. She, maintained 2 homes for a number of years. That simple task resulted in almost 6 weeks of her mail being disrupted because of a simple error made by the post office. They're human. They make mistakes. What resulted was all of her mail going to Eufaula, us having to physically go multiple times each week to pick up her mail before that could be resulted and fixed. So, yes, it is simple, but we're also dealing with human beings that make mistakes. But on the larger scale, I'd like to point out a couple of things. I want the council to be mindful of the potential ramifications of approving this request. According to the statements made at the first hearing, the name change was at least indirectly to honor Dr. Chastain, to rebrand in the area, and to remove the negative connotation of the word gunboat. There are actually 2 strip malls on Gunboat Drive, both named Chastain Properties. Whether you call it Chastain Drive or Joseph Chastain Drive, it really doesn't matter. It's an honorary designation. To begin to change names in honor of loved ones is going to set a very dangerous precedent for you. What stops loved ones from coming in after someone in their family or in their community has died and presenting these at every council meeting for you? You're setting a very dangerous precedent. I have no doubt that Dr. Chastain was an outstanding member of this community. I didn't know him personally. I knew of him. But there are many outstanding members of this community. And are you prepared to deal with that? And really, what defines honorary? I think that you're opening up a huge can of worms, to help the issues that they're having with some limited amount of crime in that area and also some problems that they're having with vacancies. You need to remember that if you approve this, are your decisions consistent or inconsistent with your previous decisions? The family of Dr. Chastain have stated that the word gunboat has a negative connotation and that they're trying to rebrand that area. And again, I think this sets a dangerous precedent. Is this council going to begin to rename Fort Benning Road, Veterans Parkway, Martin Luther King Drive, because of any acts of violence in those areas? On any given day, there are acts of violence throughout this entire city. Are we going to begin changing the names of city streets because of that? Again, it's a dangerous, dangerous precedence to be setting. Until this petition was filed, I really didn't know that gunboat had such an awful connotation. I mean, are we going to turn around and start dismantling the Naval Museum? Because my understanding is that we have replicas or parts of 4 boats there that really could be described as gunboats. Are we going to start renaming some of the streets in Columbus because they may have a negative connotation? What about Artillery Drive, Robert E. Lee Drive, or Cherokee Avenue? Are you prepared to begin to start renaming those streets? Again, opening up this can of worms, I think you have to answer to your constituents regarding this. The real issues in that area have to do with what I see are 2 issues. First, the crime rate has increased in Northeast Columbus. I've lived in Midland for more than 20 years, almost 25 years. I can remember a time I never locked my doors, never had to worry about crime. That's not the case anymore. Throughout, I don't care where you live in Columbus, there's a possibility that there will be acts of violence or crimes committed in that area. The location of their second strip mall is problematic. On Gunboat Drive, there are 2 strip malls. You have one at the beginning of Gunboat Drive and Milgen Road. It houses the Don Chucho's Mexican restaurant. There's a church there, a dry cleaner, and then Chastain's property office is there. I'm up and down that road every day. I'm at my mother's home every day. By and large, that property is always at capacity as far as its tenants. You very seldom, I believe they have one open space right now in that plaza. But Milgen Road is well-traveled. It has a lot of visibility. Gunboat Drive it was a cut-through that was made a number of years ago that connects it also to the Old Town subdivision. Where the second strip mall is located at, it's across from, as Chastain Properties pointed out, a vacant lot that has not been well maintained. It's overgrown. There's trash routinely thrown in there. The tenants from farther up Old Town Drive cut across that property. It's not well maintained. It lacks visibility to the general community, and quite frankly, if you weren't going to Old Town Road or to Old Town Drive and to that subdivision, you don't even know that that strip mall exists. So their business decision to put a strip mall in an area that lacks any visibility, which I think does impact crime, does impact their ability to rent out, that's their business problem. That shouldn't have an impact on my mother. I know that my mom is only one of 2 people affected. But I want council to remember that just because they own 2 of the 3 parcels and that they're willing to pay for the street signs should not be adequate reasons to change that street name.
Well, it doesn't look like there's anything at this time. And again, I want to apologize to you for not realizing that you wanted to speak now. I just misheard something and it got set in here, so I apologize. And certainly you're welcome. We appreciate you being here. Councilor Baker.
Did the Chastains reach out to y'all to at least to sit down and communicate and have a discussion about this once?
I had no personal conversations. You would have to ask my brother.
No, they've not.
We did talk to Mr. Thomas's wife.
But we need you to have a microphone since it's on the record.
I was going to say, I believe, because I got a call, and maybe it was Ms. Thomas, and we specifically addressed the issue of Chastain Properties reaching out and having a discussion because of the mix-up in the mailings, and I just want to make sure that...
I don't know. I can't speak for my wife. I don't know.
Yeah,
They've not had any conversations with me.
Oh, okay. And I believe it was your wife that called me that I talked to.
Yeah,
But
we did
I just
talk
want to make
to-
sure that happened because that was the understanding that it was going to happen.
And I just wanted to add that we did tell her, and no matter what the council decides, if they do choose in our favor, any expenses that mom has.
It's not the expense, it's the stress.
Yeah, anything we can do, even if the council approves, anything we can do, we'll still do that.
Okay.
But as far as you know, you did make an effort to talk to Ms. Thomas then? Because again, I believe she's the one that called me and wanted.
Did you call Kathy Thomas?
Is that your wife?
Yes. Did you call her?
It may have been Chris, because Mr. Chastain is the one I talked to about having that conversation.
I don't know.
Is he here?
No, he's not here.
Okay.
Yeah, we did meet with her, though, sometime in July. It was early, after the first reading.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure, because that was a commitment that was made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much for your input.
Okay, we've had a thorough hearing then, Mayor. We'll bring this back for a vote at the August meeting. Next item we've got is a first reading, no parking anytime on the eastern western curves of a part of Billings Road. It's up for discussion only.
We've got Counselor Thomas.
Is this the entire length of Billings Road?
No, ma'am, I don't believe it is. I think it's, let me get my right map. We got two of them. Between Brittany and
Old Dominion.
an Old Dominion.
It would be helpful when we do this if we had a map to
There
see
was
where-
a map
what you-
attached to the ordinance, I
Yeah.
believe.
Well, if there is,
We have one right here.
Got it, I got it.
Mhm.
And so can you tell me why we want to do no parking on?
This has been an ongoing concern from people utilizing the Fall Line Trace. People like to use that as an access point, and they'll park along the road, and that creates a sight distance for both directions, for people on the trail being able to see cars, as well as the traveling public being able to see people approaching the intersection on the trail, as well as it creates a sight distance problem for people coming in and out of the neighborhoods at times, depending on where the cars are parked. So this has been kind of an ongoing issue that we've had out there.
So you're saying that, that people park along there in order to get on the trail?
Yes, ma'am.
And so if we put no parking on both sides of that, is there any place for those folks to park?
Well, we actually, I'm sure you probably don't recall, but there was an agreement made with the church that's just down the road to utilize their parking lot, and they provided an access to the trail. There was an agreement that the city made with them.
And can you sort of point, is that the, is that it?
Mhm.
I never would find that parking lot if I was going out there to park unless there was some kind of signage that says you can park down here. Would that be an option? Some kind of a
We could work with
sign?
the church to provide a sign. Yes, ma'am.
You know, I mean, I understand the issue about the no parking, and I support that, but I also understand the issue about the people in the neighborhood not wanting, and I don't know how many cars are there, not wanting cars in front of their homes, that sort of thing. So if there would be some way we could put, just a neat little parking for the trace down this way sign, that might be helpful.
We
Thank
can
you.
consider that.
Thank you.
All right. We have Counselor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make council aware. Ben Billings talked to me about this one and the next item on the agenda as well, both dealing with parking. In this particular area, he received calls, since the road is named after his family, trying to seek some help for the sight distance problem, both with vehicles and pedestrians, those walking on the trail. So when the cars are parked there, it does create a sort of a congested area. I travel this area weekly and have witnessed the problems, particularly on the weekends. But I think it is appropriate for council to address and try to seek some relief before something happens. So I would support the no parking signage, and would agree with Council Thomas that it might be good to approach the church to offer some
And we can certainly do that.
suggested parking.
All right, we have Counselor Baker.
And that church is fairly easy to find, Councilor Thomas. I've been out there and met with the pastor. He's been very amenable to helping people access the trail. Don't know he'll post a sign on church property, but he's been very agreeable to helping people find access to the trail, and he's been very agreeable to help out that area out there. So I think the church has done what they said they would do. They've honored their commitment very, very much so. Thank you.
Great, all right. Okay, I think that's it for now. Oh, we got Counselor Baker? Yeah, okay, that's it.
All right, no other comments, we'll bring that back second Tuesday in August for a vote. Last item up, a no parking zone for the western curve of Talacas Lane. This is also up for discussion. Ms. Newman's here, answer any questions. Mr. Dorsey?
Doesn't look like
Any
there's any
comments?
questions related to this one. Maybe Counselor Henderson?
Just a quick question. If I read it right, it was because there's some trucks that are kind of queuing up there to park and offload their wares at the store. I know you have no crystal ball. Where will they queue up now? I mean, if they're sitting, where are they going to have to? I just want to make sure we're not moving one problem to another section of that area.
They would have to do it within the Walmart parking lot or driveway possibly around back. They may have to change their route, their normal route.
Because I have no problem with the ordinance. I just hate it when we pass something that we really aren't able to enforce that well. And if we're creating a problem somewhere else, anyway, it's just a question. If you would just find out. I don't know if you can talk to Walmart or where they think those guys will queue up, because I see that as a
We can
Have
do
a
that.
problem.
We'll have a conversation. with
okay.
them.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, looks like there's nothing further at this time.
All right, thank you all. We'll bring that back for a vote in August. Got two formal resolutions, Mayor. One expressing condolences to the family of Coach Herbert Green. It's ready for adoption.
I know that, I know that Counselor Davis would like to read this.
Okay, you want to
And
read this
so-
into the record, Counselor? This is on Herbert Green.
Mayor, I believe we have two resolutions.
Yes, we do.
One is Cal Spencer.
He just happened to call this one first, and I knew you
Right.
wanted to speak to it. And-
Well, if you'd like me to go ahead, I will.
Yeah, and then we'll do the next one. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I think, first of all, it's with honor and sincere gratitude that I get an opportunity to read this resolution. Herbert Green will be recorded in history in the archives of the city. And I think all of you know I'm about to read this resolution. It talks a lot about accomplishments. But I think if we just think about the term, the name coach, and really understand it, what it means, about the investment that he's made in so many lives, the selfless, tireless desire to contribute, to build character in people, and to have success and to win. Those are truly character values. This man certainly epitomizes that. I'd like to read, in an effort to save a little time. I guess I could go on and on, Madam Mayor, and certainly we want to make sure that the families know that they are in our thoughts and our prayers. I have a little message. Just forgive me a moment. I'll pull it up here. Well, I had it and I lost it. But I'd really like to, Madam Mayor, read this.
Sure. It's okay.
Please forgive me,
That's all right.
because I think it says everything. I got it. I'd like to read this. This was posted right after Coach Green passed. I think it says everything, and it's very certainly applies to this moment. Coach Green, you have left this earth way too soon. I'll never forget how much you did for me. The only reason I even belong on a basketball court is because of you. I never forgot the hours we spent in the gym together, sometimes just talking after we trained. You're the reason I love the game of basketball. I was just watching the ball go through the hoop today, and I thought of you and how you've helped me so much, not only on the court, but in life. When the going got tough, you were there to pick me up. There is no way I can repay all that you've done for me. Every time I step on the court, I'll always think of you. Rest in peace, Coach Green. I think that says it, Mayor, of the significant investments that he's made in our community and the lives of others. It's my privilege and honor to read this resolution. Whereas longtime Columbus State University basketball coach Herbert Green died on July 13, 2015. Whereas Coach Green was born in Eufaula, Alabama, played basketball in high school and went on to play at Auburn University. Whereas he served as an assistant coach at Auburn under Sonny Smith and then spent 25 seasons as the men's basketball coach at CSU. Whereas at CSU he compiled a record of 481 to 240 win-losses, won 4 regular season Peach Belt Conference titles and 6 PBC tournament titles. Whereas he was a founding member of the Peach Belt Conference, and on January the 3rd, 2015, the basketball court at the Lumpkin Center at CSU was named in his honor. Whereas Coach Green also served as a CSU athletic director, and under his leadership, CSU won 48 conference titles and 5 national titles. Whereas after leaving CSU, he served as the head of Columbus Sports Council and was a tireless ambassador for the promotion of sports in Columbus, Georgia. Whereas he is survived by his wife, Jan, a Fortson son, Todd Green of Eufaula, daughters Melissa Green Mathis, Greg, Columbus, Tracy Green Mizareski, Brian of Odin, Maryland, Olivia Green and Maria Green, both of Columbus, 2 sisters, 1 brother, and 6 grandchildren. Now therefore the Council of Columbus, Georgia hereby resolves, we hereby express our sincere condolences and deepest sympathy to the family of Herbert Green. His contributions to Columbus State University, sporting world, and the Columbus community will long be remembered, and we have the official document that will be presented to his family, Mayor, and I believe you will do the honors on that.
Sure.
I make a motion that we adopt this into the archives of Columbus, Georgia.
And there's a second. All those in favor, please state aye. Councilor Davis, that was beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very, very fitting for a great man, and we certainly will see that this gets to his family. And we lost 2 great citizens that same week, and many of you all know Kyle Spencer, James Kyle Spencer, who had a hand in so much in Columbus, Georgia, and actually had a hand of partnership in many things the folks around this table and even some sitting in the audience tonight are involved in. Councilor Davis reminded me that we met because of Kyle Spencer. And I think it was at that time he was getting together Trees, Inc. And so he's a man that's left a tremendous legacy. I don't know if many of you had the opportunity to know his wife, Sally Spencer, but she was a graceful, gracious spark plug of a woman who made a difference herself and was a tremendous match for Kyle. And so with that, we certainly want to honor him and thank him for his legacy to this community, a man who also touched many, many lives. And the resolution reads, whereas James Kyle Spencer, retired banker and longtime Columbus State University supporter, died July 12, 2015 at the age of 88, whereas he was born in Columbus on December 17, 1926, and attended Columbus High School and Episcopal High School in Alexandria, Virginia, before graduating from Princeton University in 1948 with a degree in political science. Whereas he formerly served on the boards of Trust Company of Columbus, First Union, Bank South, and was an early investor and board member of Aflac. Whereas he was a generous supporter of Columbus State University financing the Spencer House in Oxford, England, where CSU students studied abroad and where he and his wife Sally loved to travel. Whereas in 2013, he donated an impressive collection of over 80 historic maps to the Columbus State University Archives. Whereas a devoted environmentalist, he co-founded Trees Columbus, Inc., and later donated the Spencer House that houses other environmental organizations. Whereas he was a former president of the Historic Columbus Foundation and a member of the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. Whereas he was a Navy veteran of World War II, a Sunday school teacher and deacon at First Presbyterian Church. Whereas he was predeceased by his wife of 52 years, Sally, his daughter Louise Spencer Dupree of Rochester, New York, and is survived by sons James K. Spencer Jr. and wife Lena of Columbus, Tracy E.D. Spencer and wife Kathy of Columbus, and Richard P. Spencer II and wife Mary Leslie of Atlanta, and 9 grandchildren. Now, therefore, the Council of Columbus, Georgia hereby resolves, we hereby express our sincere condolences and deepest sympathy to the family of James Kyle Spencer. His contributions to country, to Columbus State University, and the Columbus community will long be remembered. Let a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the family of James Kyle Spencer. Is there a motion for adoption? Motion and second being heard. All those in favor, please state aye. We will certainly get this as well to the family of Mr. Spencer, and we thank them so very much, both Herb Green and Kyle Spencer, for what they have done for this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We've got one add-on resolution that's been distributed around the table that would authorize an audit by the internal auditor at Muskogee Manor. This is the Hospital Authority of Columbus, Georgia. But it's ready on the table for any questions. And
I think importantly, the Hospital Authority approved it. Oh, okay.
right, the Hospital Authority consented today to this audit, and they have no objection to it proceeding. But got a question here.
Yes, Councilor Thomas.
This seems a little unusual to me, that we would audit the Hospital Authority, and I'm just wondering if someone can tell me why we're doing this. And the other piece that I have a concern with is the phrase that says that it would be conducted by the internal auditor and any expert he may engage to assist him. I'm not sure. I'm assuming that that means funding. I'm not sure if there's a cap on that funding or if it's open-ended or, I was just a little surprised at the resolution with no explanation of why we're doing this and what has.
Sure.
What
I think it was
this is
actually
about.
supposed to come at the next business meeting, and so it happened today because I guess they approved it today, and the city manager and John Redmond
When
wanted
you
to go
say
ahead.
they approved it, do you mean they
Their board.
agreed to?
Yes.
They agreed to submit to the audit?
Yes,
Is that
correct.
what you're saying?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
A couple of things. One, I think we obviously have underwritten, or we have issued bonds for this authority. And two, as we know, they missed their financial statements last time, and we do not have a waiver this time. There's only one waiver allowed. Pam can explain that better, but Georgia law only allows one waiver. So if financial statements are not in a timely basis this time, our city goes into, what is the term, Pam?
It's not allowed to request an extension like we did last year.
Right.
We're required to have them in, or we could lose our GFOA certification, and there could be other.
Which would set off a chain of events related to the bonds and so forth. So this is simply due diligence that both entities are doing the things they should do to make sure we have all our ducks in line. I can let John talk to, as I understand, the issue related to, quote, experts. Don't know that will be needed, but there is, I understand, Medicare, Medicaid type issues that all of entities of similar sorts deal with. And in the instance, like John had to contract out for IT advice in a recent transition audit related to our IT department, he wanted the flexibility to be able to do that should he run into something that was a bit outside his lane. So, and certainly he's here and can speak to that.
And he has confirmed that if it is an expert, it would be a medical record analyst expert. So.
I guess one of the things that I'm looking at, too, is it seems to me the language of the resolution is a little different than what we've seen before. It says the council is willing to make the internal auditor available to conduct an audit of the Hospital Authority of Columbus. And, I mean, I thought that typically we directed the internal auditor to audit something, you know, willing to make it available. I just think it's...
Well, we can change any of that to desires to make the internal auditor available.
I would assume that's because they're an independent authority,
Right.
Clifton. Isn't
That's
that
right.
language they wanted? Or-
They're independent and have a certain amount of auditing done, as does the Medical Center Hospital Authority, but in this case, they were willing to let us come in, look at the books, since there have been bonds issued, and up to 7 mills is pledged by the consolidated government each year. We give 3 mills to the medical center, and of course that left plenty of room for the recent bond issuance by Muskogee Manor. But the city is involved, and it's just an appropriate request from a financial standpoint.
Well, and I would also ask if possible, that the deputy city manager in charge of finance would speak to, what do we get from this audit? Why are we doing? I still don't know why we're doing it, except you say it'll help our bond rating, maybe, if they don't do something. But I'd really like a little more information.
I think the goal to be achieved by the audit is to just provide us some comfort that we're not going to have to exercise our 7 mills to guarantee the bonds that are issued. So I just think by the internal auditor going in and just reviewing their financials is just to give us some comfort that what they're presenting is accurate, and we're not going to have to step in to guarantee their bonds.
And to whom do they typically do these financial records? Who do they present them to? Us?
They
The
send
state?
us their financial records. This past year was late, which caused us to be late. They're considered a component unit of the city, so their financials are rolled in with the city's financials in our financial statements that we present to council. So I think it's just due diligence on our part to just validate that information.
When you say they were late, you're saying they were late in getting them to us?
Yes, they were late in sending their financials to us in order for us to consolidate theirs in with ours to produce our financial statements. So theirs is rolled up into ours, along with the Trade Center, the Golf Authority, and those we handle those finances internally. The Waterworks is another example. All of those are consolidated in with our financial statements.
And do you or Mr. City Attorney have any kind of idea of a timeline? When this is going to happen, when it will be completed?
I think the internal auditor would probably be best
Yeah,
to answer that question on his
could tell us.
timeline to do that activity.
John, you want to come around? Just give us an idea, whether it's 3 months, 6 months.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council, Mr. Attorney, Mr. Manager. I'm currently doing a transition audit on the Community Reinvestment Department. That should wrap up in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll be reporting out on that one very shortly. I would anticipate commencing this audit immediately following that, probably going ahead and having an entrance conference with the executive director and also the finance officer of the Columbus Hospital Authority, Mr. Morast and Mr. Hayes. So we would set the scope of the audit and what we'll be looking at, and they can begin to gather the records that we'll need to look at. Since I currently have a vacant position, I will probably need some assistance, and we will probably attempt to engage the auditor that has worked with us before when we reviewed the medical center under our 3-mill contract that we have with them. The same individual was also used when we reviewed medical records in the jail clinic of the sheriff of Muskogee County a couple of years ago. So it would be anticipated that that's probably the individual. He's a CPA, but he has an extensive background in medical billing and reporting.
Thank you. Mayor, I'm going to vote in favor of the resolution, but I do want to, I guess you can tell by my questions and by my tone of voice that I was a little put out that we didn't have any information on this, that this resolution was put in front of us with nothing. And I'm not willing to commit our internal auditor to go off and do audits outside of our departments and so forth with any expert he cares to hire at whatever price he cares to do it without some further information.
Sure. And I think had it, like I said, I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but I think it was supposed to come next week, and there probably would have been more. But and John has done authorities before.
Yes.
Transition audits and things of that nature. So.
Well, and I know that, and I also know that he's pretty busy, and that he doesn't sit around his office twiddling his thumbs. He's working all the time, and I also know that he has a vacancy in his office, and that and all of that enters into my concern about this particular resolution.
Sure. And I think if it wasn't that we were on the hook, so to speak, for bonds, and that there had there's no waiver allowed this year, maybe it'd be something that we would put down the list. But I think it's risen to the top of the list. Councilor Davis.
Thank you.
Well, I did, Mr. Redmond, maybe you can answer this. Are there funds available in case you do need to bring on an expert? Funds available in the budget?
Well, certainly the unspent salary of the position that's vacant currently is available and could be used. I don't anticipate it would take a long time to do this. I would say no more than 2 months at the most. And as Mayor Tomlinson said earlier, I have audited some authorities previously. You may recall when Mr. Campbell retired at the Trade Center, which is also an authority, we went in and did a very thorough, really did a full audit of the entire operation, and there have been a lot of improvements that have been made as a result of that. And Mr. Campbell did a great job, but there were still things that need to be improved. There were some issues with buildings and roof structures, and many of those things have been able to be addressed as a result of that audit, as well as contingency plans for the organization and continuity plans for their management. So I think there's benefit of doing those. They're really not a great deal different than some of our other departments.
Well, certainly, if anticipation of using those funds, unless we're considering it part of the forensic auditor that we just that moved on to take a new career path.
Yes.
Unless we're just considering that the position of the forensics auditor, I do have a little concern about that. I would hope, I don't know if you need to change the language, I would hope that if you needed more resources, that you would inform council or come to council.
Absolutely.
And ask,
If we need more than is available from that salary savings, we'd certainly do that.
And I only say that, too, because, I think I heard, did I hear this right, that the documents were late, but we now have the documents?
Pam, you want to say it correctly?
Yes, the financial statements for last fiscal year, which ended June 30th, 2014, were late, so we were not able to file our financial report to the state and to GFOA on time because those financials from the hospital's authority was late to us.
Well, hopefully, I may be wrong, but I don't anticipate a great amount of research here. I mean, we do have a former employee of the finance department who is now running the finance and accounting over there with Muskogee Manor. I think we could just pick up the phone and he would be upfront and truthful in supplying all the information. But anyway, I do, if we do need to have an expert involved, I would hope that you would come back and inform council from that standpoint.
Sure.
All right.
I would add also, Mayor, that if Joan were still here, Joan would have been an ideal person to have done this because she, like I, also have a medical background and have worked in that field for many, many years. So we're very familiar with practice management and billing practices and contractual liabilities and the like. But unfortunately, she's not here and available, so we'd have to find some other resources that would be suitable for that.
All right, Counselor Thomas.
I have one more question. Ms. Hodge, have we received, has the deadline, where is the deadline for the fiscal 15 financials? Have we received those?
No, not yet. We'll have 180 days, so we have until the end of December to complete our financials, and so we're working towards that goal now.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
ready
Discussion, having been
ready for a
completed. Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion? Okay, we've got Counselor Baker, second, Counselor Henderson. Seeing there's no